Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode, this week's episode of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday, where I believe we have another wonderful, thought-provoking conversation for you today. Of course, January and February of this year has been mental health months for the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. And of course, as usual, I am thankful that you have chosen to take some of your time to join us this evening for this conversation, which I pray that we have some news that you can use and that the information that you find tonight will help you in your own growth into wonderful and good health. And so please share the show with as many people as you think may need to come and have the conversation about mental health and mental healing, because that's what we're going to get into tonight. Okay, so let's get started. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I bear witness that Master Father Muhammad came in the person of God, taught one from among us, that man being the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and this book being the foundation of this show, How to Eat to Live. And of course, neither of them have left us alone. They left us with a wonderful guide and a counselor, a friend. And I'm speaking none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. If that is the first time you have heard an opening like that, I am asking for God to guide me. I'm asking for God to use me as a vessel. I'm asking that my words be guided by those who have produced a reality for me to have something positive to say. And I also am asking for my ego and my arrogance to be removed so that I can be a vessel for your benefit. And so I pray that this show represents that, a safe place, but a place where you can come, learn, grow, and know that you're in a place that is going to help foster your self-improvement. So let's get to the shout outs and then we're going to get into the show. Okay. 8 Electronics and Catherine Muhammad. Walaikum salam. Thank you both for coming in. I see. So we got YouTube and Facebook both. Please let me know if the sound is good. Can you see and hear me okay? So I wanted to just say something really quickly from the reading that we've been doing this week, right? We will be finishing up How to Eat to Live book 2. So we read book 1 and we're finishing book 2. We will be finished by the end of the week. And we also have read in the last 2 months, the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And while we were reading this book, that's why we have concentrated our shows on mental health, because as we know in the Black community, it's a needed conversation, needed subject matter. And so, again, I'm praying that all of us have learned something from these books, learned something from these conversations. We've grown from them, gotten better, and are improving our mental health so that we could be the conduit to help improve our community, right? Self-improvement is the basis for community development. So every time we make ourselves better, we make the community better. Charles X. Moore, J. Dot, Aaliyah Muhammad, thank you all for coming in. Sound is good. Thank you for the sound check, my brothers and sisters. Appreciate you. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to do is just to talk about the evaluation aspect. George Allen, walaikum salam, my brother. The evaluation aspect to a problem, right? So if we're talking about physical health, then listen to what the last few chapters of book 2, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. Many ailments can be cured. And remember that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is writing these articles and papers around the country, and then he compiled them into a book. So he's speaking to our people all over the country in the 30s, in the 40s, in a condition that we were in was very poor, very uneducated, right? And so he says many ailments can be cured. Another chapter, not always doctor and drugstore bills. Doctors live same years as patients. destroy sickness and disease, digest properly, long intervals between eating is better, right? So I'm mentioning that because those type of statements that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made, and then of course the information that he wrote in these books, formulate a process of thinking, formulate a process of evaluation of ourselves and what we are doing, and then the reality of being able to come to a conclusion that your condition is the way you think, and because of your actions is a theoretical conclusion, right? And so on that same note, I want to read something that comes out of the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And those of you who are in the book club and have been reading with us, you can bear witness to what I'm saying, that these books have had so much congruence with each other. These aren't like, Rita Walker is not a member of the Nation of Islam. She actually talks at the end of her book that she goes to Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. The pastor used to be one of my patients. So, there's a lot of connection there, but I'm saying that from a perspective that she's a Christian, a Black Christian woman that wrote a book, and it has so much congruence in what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching and how to eat to live, because the truth has congruency, right? And so I wanted to mention this, what she said that is in continuation with the point that I was making from How to Eat to Live. Check this out. Page 205, third paragraph. When I was in graduate school, one of my wise supervisors told me that time is God's way of keeping things from happening all at once. It was a profound statement that stuck with me over the years. It happened to fit with my favorite scripture that everything happens in its season. Programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous that support those who struggle with alcoholism have 12 steps for a reason. We cannot be successful at step 2 without mastering step 1. We have to diagnose problems before we jump in with interventions. Otherwise, the outcome can be quite frustrating because we work so hard, but with no plan for addressing the real problem. And so I think that's a wonderful way for us to end this last 2 months of reading with that type of a statement. And I would just add to her statement, I'm not trying to say that I should add something to what she's saying, but I'm adding to what she's saying from my perspective, in that in the Nation of Islam, we have two books that are self-improvement study guides. So when I say self-improvement is the basis for community development, that was a lecture that the minister did back in 1986. That was the foundation of the study guides that he does, where he talks about some of the things that he's gone through in his life that helps us diagnose some of the problems, kind of assess and evaluate some of the things that are going on in our life that may mirror some of the things that went on in his life. And he kind of gives you a blueprint on how we spiritually and in all different ways, psychologically, physically, go through improving ourselves so that we get over these problems and also produce a better self for the benefit of all of those that we interact with, right? And so I thought those were two important things that I kind of looked at this morning as I was reading, and I wanted to share with you all this evening. And so I hope that continues to reign true in the rest of today's program, as well as how we process, because I think that statement that she made would be very similar to like when people come to me and I tell them, okay, you have a weight problem, you want to lose weight. Okay, you have a medical problem. Well, the reality isn't for me just to start talking about what we're going to do. The first thing is we have to evaluate where you are, what's going on with you, so you understand how you got there and understand a little bit more about everything that's going on. And that way, whatever intervention we decide to put in place, you have a better understanding of what's happening, why it's happening, and then you start looking for the signs that you're going in the right direction. Hope that makes sense, because that is, to me, that statement that she made is very indicative of how I think when it comes to trying to be a part of people's healing journey. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in my guest for this evening so we can start this conversation about healing through tragedy. Sister Queen, Walaikum Salam, happy Savior's Day, my sister. Roger Barnes, what's going on, my brother? Can't hear you, man. What happened to the sound?
My bad, I had it.
Mute.
Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother, I'm honored and privileged to be on your show, and I hope that my testimony as to what I've gone through as far as the most traumatic event in my life thus far, can help someone that may have gone through the same thing or may have to deal with that in the future.
Yeah, we pray they don't, but yeah, we pray that if they do, that we have given them something this evening that's going to help them. So let me show you all a little something, brothers and sisters. I've been knowing this guy for a while, so I'm going to show you when we first met each other. This was back as freshmen in high school. You see us back there in the back. I think I was 18. Were you 18 then, bro?
Yes, sir.
18 years old. We met when we met. I was 17. But that's where we were back at Prairie View A&M University, 1985. That was the summer, our entering year going into school. And so I say that because I've been knowing this brother for a long time. He's one of my best friends on the planet Earth. He is the webmaster for my website. I've been to both of his weddings. We've been knowing each other through all the ups and downs of life.
Yeah, so, my brother from another mother.
That's right. Always, always. And so let's just start with that, man. You know, our introduction to each other at Prairie View. Talk a little bit about how you wound up at Prairie View and what you were there for.
Well, during my senior year, of course, I applied, and as it happened, they had just started an honors college. So they gave me a scholarship, and then they told me they wanted me to be part of this honors college. And so got down there, and as you know, they had established a separate dormitory for us to live in, and we were the second class, I believe, of that college.
Yep.
First class being the previous class.
Right.
And so I'll be honest with you, when I got down there, and although I was honored to be on scholarship and have be part of this new honors college, you know, when we got down there, we found out that group had been tagged as the nerds of the university. I've never been a nerd in my life,
right?
You know, so I wasn't particularly happy about that, and so thus I tried to separate myself from the group.
Right.
I've always been an athlete, and so I ended up befriending a couple of athletes there, and just tried to distance myself from y'all. But you could not go unnoticed, brother. You was the loudest and most vocal by far one in the group in that class, and so everybody knew who Akili Graham was.
Well, I hope that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always you made sure that everyone knew two things, and I don't want to use profanity on your show, but you used to run up to people, and you had two things to say: I'm Akili Graham, and I am the Shiznit. That's it. You made sure everyone knew that.
I don't know if everybody wanted to hear that part of the story, but it's all good because we don't do no editing, we don't do no censoring here, so people can come out here and say what they want to. But in all honesty, man, you know, we did meet. I think that was kind of our thing, you know. That little group that I just showed, we kind of were like little misfits in the nerd group, and we really wanted to connect ourselves with other people and other organizations and other things, because we really weren't too. I would say too enthralled with running around calling ourselves nerds, but we did have some sense about us, and we did have some goals, and we had some aspirations to do some things. And, you know, it took some schoolwork, but, you know, the backgrounds that we came from, like you and I, were very similar. You know, we really didn't have too much of we didn't want that, you know, we didn't want that crown, the nerd crown. But, you know, one of the things that was amazing about you and me bros, just like today when we were talking before the show, we found even some more things that were synonymous about our lives and how things happen. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss tonight was, of
Absolutely.
course, from a mental health perspective, is our drinking. Right? I know I wasn't a drinker in high school. I was trying to be an athlete, and my father and anybody else that was an athlete that I looked up to was always talking about, don't drink, don't do drugs, take care of your body, yada yada yada. But when we got to Prairie View, drinking was the thing. And
Right.
that's one of the things that the minister has taught us over the years. And of course, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad before then was, we have aspirations to go to college. We have aspirations to go to these schools. But a lot of the things that we do at Black schools, we're emulating a very debauchery-like activity of these other organizations. So we did a lot of drinking, a lot of fornication, a lot of things that aren't what we grew up. And a lot of us, of course, in the church or wherever we grew up, it wasn't that type of reality when we got to school. So have you ever thought about, or can you discuss a little bit about why you think when we got to school we did so much drinking?
Well, yeah, everything you said is absolutely correct. Generally speaking, uh, generally in society, college life is associated with those activities:
Right.
drinking, uh, sleeping around a lot, and just wild parties and things of that nature. And in reality, HBCUs are no different. Uh, it's just that once you get there, you can't forget why you're there. And we were honors college, so we had that heavy on our plate. Uh, but personally speaking, like you, I wasn't a drinker before I came to college. Uh, but on those weekends, you don't have done your homework. There's nothing to do. As freshmen, you're kind of the outcast.
Right.
You're on the low total pole, so you're the last one to get the girls' attention. So we found ourselves on the weekends with nothing to do. To sit around, look at each other, have wrestling matches in the room, and drink
Right.
and talk about where we're from. And but personally speaking, coming up, we had similar backgrounds. My parents were two professionals, um, and I had a pretty stable life. The only instability in my life coming up was that we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So we never stayed anywhere more than 4 years. And in each situation, I found myself in a totally different environment. From the second grade to the fifth grade, my dad was a professor at Mississippi Valley State University.
Mm-hmm.
So we're out in the country in Mississippi. My elementary school was all black. Had two white students. So they were brothers and sisters in that elementary school. We left there and moved to Oklahoma. Totally opposite situation. Uh, Country town. Now I'm in a school, elementary school, sixth grade through the ninth grade. We're like one of two black families in the entire town. So I had to go from that situation. Once it seems like it's, well, let me finish on. So 4 years in Oklahoma, all white. My sophomore year, my dad accepted a position in North Carolina, vice president of a small black college. So now I'm on the East Coast in a school that's kind of half and half. Senior year, find out we're moving back to Oklahoma. I just, I was just starting to fit in. They dress totally different out there. I set myself up to have a great senior year. I got the attire, fell in love, uh, had a girlfriend. I'm gonna keep it all out there. Lost my virginity that summer. I'm ready for a great senior year. Just before school starts up, we're moving back to Oklahoma. So the point is, my entire coming up, I'm always trying to find my identity. I'm trying to fit in. And every time in every situation, just when I was getting there, I was uprooted. And I realized in adulthood that had a negative effect on me. And it was no different when I got down to Prairie View. I mean, this is our first time operating under our parents. We're surrounded by older peers. And we're just observing, trying to figure out what's what and where we fit in, you know. And so again, we get together on the weekends because we're kind of the outcasts as freshmen. And we started drinking. And I think for all of us, drinking was not only an escape, but a way to help us. You know, when you're intoxicated, you feel like you can conquer the world. You know, it gives you, it seems to give you a false little sense of uh, importance.
Yeah, and I think that's important, because I think what you mentioned is a pretty thought provoking ideology, right? Your parents were two educators. My mother was an educator. My father was a dentist. And from most purposes of people viewing from outside, we should have had everything for us. We had stability and all these different things.
Right.
But some of those guys in that picture that I showed at the beginning, they didn't necessarily have the same foundations that we had. But all of
Right.
us were similar in the way that we were trying to ease the pain or whatever it was. And as we get older, we start to realize some of the stuff that was happening to us wasn't necessarily the most beneficial. But all of us as Black people have our issues, but we have a way to try to numb the pain that's similar as well. Drinking, using drugs, sex, gambling, all these different things. And so I think it's important for us to look at that briefly while we're talking about your story, because of what I just read out of her book. And that is to get to the essence of what some of our problems are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the story that we're talking about with you is one that is profound, as we discussed today. And we pray that we can help people. But, this is kind of just talking about some of the underlying and maybe some of the formative realities of why we wind up in some of the situations that we wind up in. So a couple of shout outs, and then we're going to get to the next phase, my brother. Special lady, good evening. Robin Muhammad, EP Hope, Christine Crowder, walaikum salam. Thank you all for coming in. Good evening. So after college, bro, I kind of went off to Meharry, and you kind of stayed in the Houston area. And in 1991, something happened. Take us a little bit around what was going on in your life and what happened that evening.
Well, basically, you did what you came there to do. Excuse me. I had gotten so distracted, I ended up flunking out, and so I was forced to go home. Once I got home, I got a job, a nice job, and purchased myself a brand new little truck. Uh, and I'm just a vibrant, young man that's got a lot of confidence. And I hooked up with two other men around the same age, young men around the same age. And, we were just two 22-year-old, three 22-year-old young men out doing what 23-year-old young men do that don't really have any responsibilities. So our routine was pretty much go to work during the week, on the weekend, spend every free moment that we can, chasing girls, going to clubs, things of that nature. Um, One particular night during doing our routine, we went out to a club, and of course, all these activities involve drinking, heavy drinking. Went out to the club, and I was more tore up that particular night than the two of them for some reason. And long story short, after the club, on the way to one of my friend's apartment, uh, well, actually, we were so intoxicated that the plan was we were all in three different vehicles. So the plan was to keep me in between them all the way to his apartment. I must have turned off, or for some reason I got away from that. Uh, right as I approached his apartment, I must have passed out, but I ended up running off the road and hit in a tree. I remember I was being rolled to in the hospital on a roller. I heard the voice of a nurse just telling me that Roger, Mr. Barnes, you've had an accident and we're taking you to surgery. So what happened was I ended up running off the road and hitting a tree. I was thrown from the vehicle, and the impact when I landed, well, as I was being thrown from the vehicle, my foot got caught, pretty much was ripped off. So when I got to the hospital, it was just hanging on, from what I understand, just barely. The impact when I hit the ground broke my arm. The force was so much this way, it broke my arm and it yanked all the nerves apart up here. So this arm, these nerves were totally severed. As a result, my arm was completely paralyzed. When we got to the hospital, the doctors initially thought that they were just going to have to amputate my foot, but my mother wasn't trying to hear that. So fortunately, she stepped in. They did what they could, and as a result, I'm pretty mobile with that foot. But as far as the arm goes, there wasn't anything they could do. So they contacted at the time one of the top neurosurgeons uh, in the in the world. I had to travel to New Orleans and have this lengthy operation. They explained to me the risk. They said it's going to could be a 15-hour operation, and you could die because of where the operation was being done. I had no hesitation. I'm like, well, whatever we have to do, let's do it. My mother drove me down there. We had the operation, and what they ended up doing was taking. I think most people are familiar with skin grafts. Well, they can also do a nerve graft. So they took nerves from the back of my leg. Just to explain to everyone, the nerve is kind of like a cable. You got the skin or
Sheath.
the tissue that encapsulates the actual nerve. But if that surrounding encapsulation is separated, then the nerve will continue to grow, but it doesn't have any guidance as to where to grow. So they had to repair that. So they took nerves from the back of my legs, did nerve grafts in my brachial plexus area, this area up here. And as I mentioned before, it's pretty serious operation because of where it was being done. And then after that, it was just a matter of seeing how successful the operation would be. As it turned out, I started to you initially get your feeling back, as they explained to me, and then you start to get your motory capability back. I probably got that about to the elbow, and that's about it. So for all practical purposes, I was stuck with a arm that I couldn't use.
Right.
And so
going back just a little bit, bro, you right, because we're talking about healing from tragedy, healing from
right.
this accident, right? What was your first recollection of where you were from a mental perspective when you came to in that hospital, whether it was on the way to surgery or after surgery? What was going on in you when you found out, right? Because I'm sure, because I remember when I was at your house and I'm forgetting your boy's name right now, was talking about the accident, but he said, yeah, you all went, he made it to his apartment or to the other guy's apartment. They were there waiting for you.
Oh, yeah.
And when you didn't show up, they were like, oh, damn, what happened to Rod? And then they went back and looked for you, and the police were already there, I think, right? Or ambulance or something.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But if I remember correctly, they said that you were hanging from the tree, right? Wasn't your leg stuck in the tree and you were upside down and blood was something like that? I think that they described it when they pulled up, they were pulling you down from the tree or something like that. Was that correct, or am I incorrect?
That's the first time I'm being honest. That's the first time I've heard that.
Okay,
I thought that I just got thrown from the truck out, and I thought that my foot got caught on the as on the door or something, which basically ripped my foot off. But it very well may be true.
You went through the windshield face first and then flipped.
Yes, all this
right,
got
all this, right.
Yeah.
And so, to me is probably from my perspective, right? I'm not you. I'm not in your shoes. That's why I'm asking the question. But the thing that challenged me always, of course, when I first got the call that it happened to you and what happened, and then of course until the next time I saw you, I was always wondering, what was it like to wake up in the hospital and the nurse was talking to you, and I'm sure you were probably in and out there. But after the surgery, when you were recovering, where were you mentally? How were you dealing with things at that point in this process?
Bro, to be honest with you, I don't think I was actually even dealing with the reality of the situation. I think in my mind, I thought, okay, this is pretty bad. I felt bad for getting myself in that situation, but in the back of my mind, I was just thinking, well, there's a way to get this taken care of, and we're gonna, I'm gonna get it taken care of, and everything's gonna be okay. So I really wasn't worried at that point, uh, to be honest. So I at that point, I thought everything was gonna be okay. I knew it was gonna take some serious medical attention. Like I said, they told me that I could have an operation. They told me it may be a life risking operation, but I'm like, let's have an operation. I don't want to be stuck like this. Uh,
Right.
so I wasn't. I I had faith that if we had the operation, then I'd be able to walk away and have somewhat walk away somewhat the way I was before the accident.
Yeah, I'm going to go back just for a second, and I want you all to see this. It's not for any egotistical purposes. I hope you all understand. This was our crew, our freshman year at Prairie View A&M University. Now I had some other guys that I hung out with from time to time because they were from Riverside as well, but they were a little older than me. But this was kind of like the dudes that I spent almost every day with. The dude to my left, standing up on the highest spot, that was my roommate. But I would say that of these people right here, that we spend a lot of our time with playing sports, basketball, football, studying, whatever we were doing. Rod and I were very confident people. And he has had a conversation with his mother about his confidence as a young person. And I've had some conversation with my mother over the years about how confident I was. She said I was so young, she didn't even understand how I was even that confident. I give credit to Allah for that, because I can't
Right,
remember
right,
where that came from or that anybody instilled that in me. But the
yeah.
reason why I'm mentioning that is because when you talk about that perspective of you were thinking about getting back, was there ever a time where you were like, damn, how did I get here? Woe is me. Damn, I feel sorry. Did you ever go through that period where you were feeling like that? I can't make it, or I'm not going to be the same. Did you ever go through that perspective?
In all honesty, I did have the moment of like after the operation. Well, excuse me, before the operation, but after the accident when I was back home at home. And remember, this is before the operation, so my left arm is totally paralyzed. My foot is sewed up. I've got a cast on it. And so during those nights after that, I'm
So
laying in.
real quick, just from the time that you got out to hospital after that surgery on your ankle to
Mhm.
the time when your mother drove you to Louisiana, New
Right.
Orleans, what
Yeah.
was the time frame in between there? And then go ahead and finish that.
Honestly, I can't remember. I don't think it was more than 6 months though.
Okay.
So it was pretty. Uh, but it was during that time when I'll be laying in the bed late at night when I'll be asking myself, I'll be self-reflecting, and I'll be asking myself, how did I, you know, how you know, I'll blame myself. I was like, how did I allow this to happen? But it was during those moments. Now I was raised in the church as a Christian. Church every Sunday was the rule, no question. Sometimes all day. I mean,
Right.
people, yeah, y'all remember how it used to be. Uh, and so I knew about God, uh, but I hadn't had developed a personal relationship with Him. So it was those dark late nights when I'm laying in the dark in the bed, and that's when I started. That's when I developed that personal relationship with Him, and I just started talking to Him and asking. asking them, asking for forgiveness for what I had done, and asking him to get me out of, get me fixed, allow me to be fixed up.
Right. Yes, sir. Let me get a
But I've
couple of these
never,
comments. Go ahead.
but I've never. The second part of your question, I've never, and I attribute this to just my self confidence. I've never had a woe is me moment. I was speaking with my mother earlier today about the show, and she confirmed it. She said, "Yeah." She said, I don't ever recall you or have ever seen you be like, "Woe is me," or even complain about your arm.
Yeah.
She said she's never seen me do that since that accident. And I don't recall doing it. And I think that's just comes from my self confidence because uh, once I had to accept that, keep in mind I'm a young man. I'm only 23 years old.
Right. Right.
I've got a lot that I want to do, a lot that I want to accomplish. I'm like I don't have time to be. I focused on what I still had versus what I lost. And I had to, because if I didn't, I wouldn't. I'd stop living. I had too much to do, too many goals to accomplish, and I thought too much of myself. I'm like, that's not me. This is me. My arm is not me.
It's amazing because I remember the first time I saw you after the accident, and I think I came over to your house one time, and we were like, interacting. I don't remember what we were doing. We were doing something, eating something, and I said, "Yo, well, you want me to get you for that? You want me to get that for you?" And you said, "Hell no, fool! I can do it my damn self." And I
Yeah,
was like, "Okay," because I never went. After your accident, of course, I think in my mind, and a lot of times we can do this when something happens to a friend of ours or somebody that we know. Sometimes we play in our mind that it's worse than what it is, and then
right,
sometimes we play in our mind that it's not as bad. We don't think it's as bad. When we see the person, we're like, "Damn, I didn't know it was that bad." And
right,
so when I saw you, my first state of mind was, this is my friend. I'm not going to act like, you know, I'm going to baby him and be sorry and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to treat him like I always have treated him.
And at that point, I had my arm in a sling, right,
You had your arm in a sling and you were still
yeah,
limping. You had a pretty
right,
serious
right,
limp
right,
on that leg. Yeah. And so, yeah. And that was the reality, is because you had it in a sling. I was like, okay, let me, and then after that day, I was like, shit, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm not going to do anything for him unless he asks me,
right,
because you never told me that. But that's what I got from that first experience. Is like, nah, man, I don't need no help. I got it. And so that gave me confidence to just be myself around you and don't worry about it, because whatever you couldn't do, we are going to help you. And
yeah,
that's the reason why I didn't bring up the confidence that we had from arrogant perspective. I brought that up because those were things that people used to always say about the two of us when we were together. A lot of people used to say, man, they used to call us arrogant, or some people would say, man, I ain't never seen no two people that were so confident in themselves. Some people would say cocky and those type
right,
of things. But I think it was the blessing of God, because I know I didn't do anything to have that type of confidence when we first met, but it has helped through life when things are tough, when things don't always go your way.
absolutely,
It's sometimes I'm just like, okay, well, hell, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna go right back at it. I'll get a yes tomorrow, or I'm gonna make this
right,
happen tomorrow.
right.
And I can only say praise be to Allah for that, because there's nothing that I've done. Let me get a couple of shout outs. And I think there was a beautiful question, bro, that's going to lead us into the next phase of this. Stole Rutu Sant Fulton, Walaikum Salam, Robin Muhammad. She says, wow, thank Allah, God, you are alive today. Yeah. He's
Right.
done a certainly light up. Jerome in the house. Walaikum Salam. Dorothy Muhammad. Walaikum Salam. Priscilla Timmons. Greetings, ma'am. Tina Evans. She said, wow, you are truly blessed. Yes. Eunice Johnson. Peace and blessings. Yes. Same to you, ma'am. So Robin Muhammad states, or she asked the question, how much of your faith in God do you think played a part of your healing and the reason you're here today to tell us, I'm sorry, the reason you're here to tell us the story today? And I just want to add in your answer, because I think that's a beautiful question. We talk about, you and I have had this conversation on many occasions about God's will, right?
Right.
And I say all the time that if I know somebody that, gets a pile of coke and they snort coke and then have a heart attack, because that's sometimes what cocaine will do to us, is cause a person to have a heart attack. That wasn't God's will for your life.
Right.
If I get totally intoxicated and get behind the wheel and do something in that car and do damage to myself or somebody else, that doesn't necessarily mean that's God's. Matter of fact, I would say that isn't God's will.
No.
But in our conversation about what happened to you, we still talk about God's will. So can you include that in your explanation of how much of your faith in God do you think played a part of your healing and the reason you're here to tell us the story today?
Well, absolutely. My relationship, my personal relationship, and my faith in God is the key. It starts, it ends, and it is the key to my ability to be able to process that, deal with it, accept it, and heal from it. And that's basically it in a nutshell. In regards to His will, and I admit it took some maturing in my spiritual life to get to this point. But
Yeah.
once you understand that He created us, and it's not our time here on earth is He created us for His purpose. A lot of times most of us don't realize that or forget it, and we're all about ourselves and what we want to do and what our will is. And we get outside of His, and when we do that, we start doing things that He doesn't want us to do. Um, we're getting away from Him, and He'll use events to get to draw us back. Kind of wake us up and get us back to a place that He wants us to be. And really that's the place He wants us to be, is be focused on His will and understanding and knowing that His will is for us to have life and have it more abundantly. But He puts conditions on that. He doesn't make you do it.
That's right.
It's a choice. He lays out. He gives you the information, but once you have the information, you have to make a decision. What are you going to do? Am I gonna love Him as much as He loves me? Am I gonna follow His guidance and am I going to obey Him, or am I going to do something else? And when we decide to do something else, He's still in control. He doesn't want you to do that, and by Him being in control, He's gonna put things in your life that He hopes will change your mind and bring you back to Him. But in essence, once you know His will and you accept fully and 100% accept that His will is what it is, man, and you live that every day, that removes a ton of weight off of our shoulders. You won't worry. You won't worry so much and stress so much about things that happen in your life that according to your will you don't like or may hurt you or you don't think is fair. Um, those things serve a purpose in your life. Usually they'll make you stronger if you handle them correctly. Uh, and so we must at all times be focused on His will, which is the bigger picture, and not just our own will and desire, not just the particular event. I mean, that event happens, whatever it may be. In my case, it was a traumatic uh, accident that caused me to use of my body. I wasn't, everything that we have was given to us by God, and we're supposed to be good stewards. I wasn't being a good steward of my body, so I paid the consequence. And but that doesn't mean He doesn't love me. That doesn't mean, and like you pointed out, to your point, that wasn't His will. But when I get outside of His will, He'll do what He needs to do to bring us back, because ultimately He wants us to achieve His purpose
That's
for
right.
creating us and not ours.
Right.
And if we do that, we'll be amazed that if we put him first and focus on the bigger picture, which is his will, he'll take care of. He knows what we want to do. He knows what he put us here to do and what our purpose is. And you'll be surprised on what the results will be. You'll be much happier. You'll end up having life and having life more abundantly, so to speak.
Yeah, powerful answer, bro. Yeah, so brothers and sisters, if you missed the beginning, this is somebody I've been knowing for 36 years. We met when we were 17 years young, and have maintained a friendship all of these years. And so
Brothers,
it's tough. Absolutely. And it's tough to watch your friend go through what I watched him go through. You know, I mean, like I said, when I first saw him, I wasn't going to play the, oh, I feel so far sorry for you role. I wanted to be there as his support system and be there for whatever he needed. And I was at the times that I had the ability to. But this happened to him my first year in medical school. And so I wasn't able to be there as much as I wanted to because I was on the grind. But that strengthened us, I believe, from the perspective of watching how he went through it. But also, I think it strengthened us in the fact that when he experienced me, I wasn't trying to shy away from him. I wasn't, if the conversation about the accident came up, we would talk about it. We've always been frank about it. We never hid and played around with words or was afraid to have the serious conversation. And I think that's what is one of the things that built our relationship. So another question to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, to your point, you would have pissed me off if you'd have treated me any different. Because I'm looking at you, I'm like, you're a Keely. I'm like, I'm still Rod. Mm-hmm. I'm the same Rod you knew before the accident. So if you treat me any differently, then that's just gonna piss me off. And so I that was the last thing I wanted anyone to do. And furthermore, I've got good friends that I met after that. So this is the way they met me. And most of all of my friends, I would say, are alpha males. And I've had a few of them actually tell me, man, if that had happened to me, I don't think I could handle it the way you handle it. And I understand where they're coming from, but I really, my reply is, bruh, if this had happened to you, trust me, it will become your reality and you would deal with it. It is what it is. You still gonna have the same desires. You're gonna have the same goals, and you got to get on with living your life. So, it is what it is. Basically, I'm proud of that because I carry myself in a way that most people don't even notice that until they've been around. I told you a story today, real quick. I worked with someone for a year and a half. For a year and a half, I worked with them. Towards the end of that year and a half, we came into the company together. Towards the end of that year and a half, we were sitting in cubicles that faced each other. So, like, if he stood up and I stood up, we'd be looking face to face. And I'm the type of person, just like you touched on earlier. If I need help for something, I have no problem asking because to me, it's no different than I'm in a grocery store and someone asks me to get something off the top shelf because I'm so tall. I get it, give it to them, don't think anything of it, and I'm sure they don't think anything of it.
Right.
So I'm the same way. If I don't need help for too much of anything, but if I do need help with something, I have no problem asking. Hey, bro, can you do this for me, or can you do that? In this particular instance, I was trying to put on my watch. And of course, I needed him to fasten it for me. I needed someone to fasten it for me. So, mind you, I'm thinking he knows I can only use one arm because we've been working closely together for a year and a half.
Right.
I asked him, hey, bro, I'm trying to. Can you fasten this for me? I never forget the look on his face. What you talking about? I'm like, come on, man. I just need you to fasten this for me. Why you can't fasten? I thought he was kidding. I'm like, come on, man. I can't use my arm. He was like, no, I didn't. I was like, really, bro? He was like, bro, I've never seen you need help or you don't carry yourself. I said, bro, you never noticed that I don't ever take this hand out of my pocket. Yeah. You never noticed that. No. That just that floored me, man. I was on the floor. because I never forget that look he gave me. Like, why the are you asking me to do that?
Right. And that's amazing because when you told me the story, I thought a couple of things. One is, a lot of times we're not really paying attention to people around us, like really, distinctly. But the other thing is that, and that's what I tell people when they ask me about you. I say, hey, I ain't never seen him wear a short sleeve shirt since the accident. And every day he puts his hand in his pocket, he goes on about his business. That's his way of handling what happened with him in his accident. But it's not, I always tell people it's not one of those things where he's like tripping off of it. That's just his thing.
Right.
That's his way of life now. You know what I mean? So that's his normalcy now. So I would ask this, bro, and then we got a couple of good comments. And I'm gonna tell you this, somebody that we both been knowing as far as we've been knowing each other. You see him on the comments?
Let me make this last point real quick
Okay.
on that.
Yeah.
So for many years after the accident, I had to wear I wore my arm in a sling.
Yeah.
So that was the only self-conscious thing I could, because when you see someone, when I'm approaching someone, that their direction is going to go to that before they even see me. And so to them, I'm hurt, I'm crippled, I'm disabled because they see that. And like I said, my self-confidence, which I also believe is a blessing from God. Uh, I've never had a problem meeting women at all. My arm was in that sling when I met my first wife, who was a beautiful professional woman, could have had anybody she wanted. I had nothing. Didn't have a degree, was making minimum wage. And so I had the self-confidence to approach her. And it's funny, she laughs about it. I had a jacket on, and she asked me what I have under that jacket, a machine gun. I'm like, nah, that's my arm. And so she was actually the one during our uh, dating. She said, "Why don't you take your arm out of the sling, take that cast off, and just put your hand in your pocket?" I said, I never thought about it. Did it, and that's the way I've been. That's what I've been doing ever since.
So yeah, that was one of the things I was going to bring up because
and so that way, the benefit of that is that my point was, now when someone sees me or I approach someone, they see me again. That's I'm confident. I know that didn't change who I am. So I want you to see me first. And then a lot of times people don't even ever realize it unless I bring it up, or they're around me they don't even notice. It's just the way I carry myself.
But what did
Unless they
that?
see me, my neighbor, I got a new neighbor. She's like, "Why you always keep your hand in your pocket?" I just joke with her. I tell her, I got a old Prince lyric. I got a lion in my pocket, and he's ready to roar. But anyway, yeah. So that's
what did that statement from your wife at that time? What did that do? I mean, for her to say, "Why don't you," making that type of a suggestion?
I think she realized,
because at that time, what it was how many years? It was 4 years after, right, when you met her, right?
Right, yeah,
4
right
or
about
5,
that.
something like that.
Yeah, so I think she recognized that was something that was I won't say a pain, but a sore. You know, anything I wore, no matter what, I've got to put on this sling.
Right.
And again, when people, I don't, it was my only source of anxiety about the whole deal, because I don't want people to look at me as a cripple or anything like that,
Feeling
because I'm
sorry
not.
for you.
I'm not. As a matter of fact, I'll bring in another girl. When I went back to school, when I went back down to Prairie, I was going to finish my degree. I got a small apartment, so I had to pay bills. So I had to go to work at Compact. Well, that was kind of rough. So I thought just for a second, I said, why don't I just apply for disability, and that way I could finish school comfortably, get my bills paid, and then once I finish school and go to work, I'll get off of it. Don't you know they denied me, because by that time I had been working. I started working like a couple months after the accident. I got tired of laying on the couch. I looked in the paper, I saw an ad that said senior citizens or people with disabilities. It was a telemarketer job. I got my butt up off that couch when I got that job, and I had substantial work. I've been working substantially since then. So in their denial, they say you've been working and you've had substantial work, so you can't get disability or SSI. So when I fill out an application, are you disabled? No,
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't. I can function just like anybody else.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anthony Frame, thanks for coming in. Sister Queen says, focused on what I still had and not what I lost. Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. You have
Robin,
to.
yeah. Robin Muhammad says, what an amazing testament of faith. Focus on what I still have, not on what I lost.
What you lost doesn't define you.
Right.
Yeah.
Catherine Muhammad says, good point. Allah has an active will and a permissive will. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Eunice Johnson says, beautifully explained. So here's one of our brothers from all the way back from Prairie View, Johnny Diggs. What's going on, my brother?
What's up,
But
Johnny?
Johnny's, Mr. Diggs.
Yeah.
Johnny says, a powerful testimony of faith and friendship. One love to both of you brothers. Right back at you, Johnny. Appreciate you always being a supporter of the show, my brother. Robin Muhammad said, that's what a real brotherhood is all about. Yes, ma'am. Priscilla B. Timmons says, your faith and will to live are very strong, my brother. Amazing testament. Praise be to Allah. She also says, very encouraging, uplifting testament. Well, praise be to Allah. Thank you for sharing that, because that was both of our desire, is that sharing his testimony on the show would help somebody. And, one thing I wanted to ask you, bro, is when you think about the perspective that we just talked about, God's will and your will, right? Because your will was to go drink that day. Right. God's will may have been, okay, I'm not going to let him die because I got something else for him to do. I want to keep him here. Have you, I know you have, but what has been the process of you evaluating why God kept you alive? And have you figured out what it is that you are kept alive for?
Yes and yes. I'm a logical thinker. I try to use rationale. And that has not been the only incident that God has saved me. Right. As I told you today, and I've said to many people over the years, if my destiny was left up to me,
yeah,
I would have been out of here a long time ago, right. Either dead or in prison.
That's right.
So that's powerful evidence that God, obviously God brought me through all those things. Logically speaking, just from a logical standpoint, even if you're not a spiritual person, that seems to indicate that God has a great purpose for you. He's not keeping you around for nothing. And answer to the second part of that question, yes, I don't know all of the purpose, but I do know one, and it's a common purpose that we all share. Anybody who's struggling with their purpose in life, know this: we all, as God's children, being created by God, have a common purpose. And that common purpose is to serve one another.
Yes.
Serve your fellow man. So even if you don't know what you want to do or what your purpose is, we all have that common purpose. He created us to serve each other, to be there for each other. Because he wants us to show each other the same love that he shows us. So we all have that purpose. And I truly believe that everything that he's brought me through, and I tell him this all the time, whenever I get the opportunity, I'm building this. The purpose is to build this powerful testimony as to his grace and mercy. So if you get nothing else from that, from my story, know that we're here to help each other, serve each other, and in my case, the things that he's brought me through, if what I've been through could help someone else, then that's, I'm doing what he wants me to do.
Right.
That's part of my purpose.
So there were two things that came up while you were talking, and one is in biblical scriptures it says, "How do you know you come from death to life? How you know that you've come from death to life because of the love of the brotherhood," right? And there's also a statement in the Quran that says, "You want for your brother what you want for yourself." And
Mm-hmm.
so, this brother right here, brothers and sisters, and also my friend that came on a show last week that I mentioned, Douglas Hargray, were both changed forever in a car accident. My friend Douglas Hargray is paralyzed from the neck down, and called me today and text me today and let me know he's headed to the hospital. So keep them both in your prayers because they both are still on their journey.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you this, bro. The drinking and the decision that you made that night. Of course, if you had the ability to turn back the clock, you would do something different. But that's not a reality, right?
Right.
And that's only fantasy thinking.
Right.
But what did the accident do with, to, or about your drinking?
Well, to be honest with you, at the time, I was still a hard-headed young man. Again, I'm still me. So even after the accident, I'm still a young guy. I still have the same desires, and so it took me just going through life, and God had to kick me in the butt a few times even after the accident, for to get my attention the way He has it now. So yeah, I had to took me a while to realize that's not what He wants me to do. I'm not. He entrusted me with this body, and he actually entrusted us with a lot of everything we have is something He entrusted us with: relationships, opportunities, our bodies. And He wants us to be good stewards of. So that's where I'm at right now, and that's how I'm living right now.
Yeah, before we got off the show, if your mother and father are watching, I just want to give a shout out to the Barnes, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
Barnes. Always have appreciated you all and always have had much respect and love for you both, because the thing that also connects you and I are our brothers. Both of us have younger brothers that came to Prairie View. Greg is just a year behind you, so he came 1 year after us. And my brother, Amali came in our senior year. And we have so many things in common like that, that as well. And you and I and our brothers are planning on doing something together as a foursome to kind of do the same thing, to share our experiences, to see who and what and how we can gather Black men's ideas to grow and to be self-improvers. But what else have you done in your healing, in your journey since the accident? What have you done to actually experience that, what you just said, to be a support system, be a benefit to other people? What are some of the things that you've done over the years that has expressed that learning and that growth and that maturity that your challenges have grown in you?
Well, basically, it's just how I live every day, and I am looked at as a leader in my family, and so uh, I try to be a good mentor to my younger nephews and cousins, and even my friends. So I just try to impart wisdom from what I've been through upon them whenever the opportunity presents itself. And I don't, I just try to have a one-on-one with them and say, this is not it, bro. This is not what you need to be doing. This is not what God created you to be doing. And you need to really keep in mind that your actions not only going to have consequences for you, but those who love you. A lot of people don't think. A lot of young guys don't think about that. Your parents, if you're married and have children, your wife, your kids, or anybody in your family or in your circle is looking up to you. They're watching you. You need to be conscious of that as you go about your daily life.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things I've done. Of course, I do your website. I have a business, Legacy Web Solutions. Our goal or my motto for that business is I feel like anybody who has a business is going to be their legacy. And so our motto is we're building our legacy by helping you build yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the website is under construction at the moment. But once it's done, uh, I'll give you the information so that you can, if I can help anyone else who's working on their legacy, I'll be glad to do so.
Yeah, so everyone when you get a chance, go check out the website and you see what a wonderful job my brother does. Couple of shout outs and then we're gonna get to our last couple of questions. EP Hope says, "What you lost doesn't define you." Another great statement.
Yes.
And Robin says, "Yes, may Allah be with him." I think she was responding to us talking about praying. So yeah, I think that point that you make, bro, it was very, very profound because I really didn't even understand my mother's perspective about waiting on me and my brothers coming home at night until maybe a couple of years ago. And I was sitting and I was talking to her, and she said, I used to be in agony when you all were out there in the streets because just of what was going on in Southern California. I mean, people don't realize how much police brutality was going on out there. I know God saved me a couple of times from getting my head knocked or killed.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sat and listened to her explain that, I got this eerie feeling like, damn, I never even considered that my mother was going through it when I was out there being foolish. I was out there till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes not even coming home and not even letting them know. To sit there as a parent and see the emotional reaction that my mother had just telling me the story, it was kind of I don't know, it wasn't a good experience. It was good to hear her say that, but it was like one of those things where you say, damn, I wish I would have seen things a little different. But it's not possible for us to see things different when you're a young person and you're going through things like that. So from the perspective of your family, your mother, your father, and your brother, your sister, what do you think your accident and the journey to where you are today, what has it done for them? What has it done for the bond of the family?
Well, like we've already touched on, our coming up was similar. I think my parents they did everything that they knew to do, and I think they assumed that as long as we followed the rules, they brought us up right. That once we left the household, left from under their wing, that we would carry on uh, with what they taught us.
That's right.
And but but once you get out there in the world and you got all kinds of influences coming at you, left and right, you got all kinds of distractions. Yeah, as a young person, it gets a lot of what you learn coming up is you either start questioning it or you just totally ignore it, and that's a lot of times that's how we end up in trouble. But as far as the accident on them, I know it was very traumatic for my parents, and I hate that. I don't try to dwell on it, but what I've tried to do with the rest of my life is try to make up for that. Just make, assure them that my living is that my life is not uh, in vain, and that I'm going to serve out the purpose that God created me for, and that's all they want. As Christian parents, that's all they want. They want me to be the best that I can be and to put Him first in my life. But as a man and as a single man, again, I try to be a positive influence to anybody in my circle, but a lot of it is my family. So I try to mentor the young boys and the young men in my family. But I even have friends of mine that's our age or older, and I try to do the same with them if I see that it's, it may be necessary.
Yeah,
And I
well,
appreciate them. I don't get any. I appreciate that for the most part. I don't get any resistance, even if, you're my age. I try to approach them with respect and love. So then, hey, bro, I'm not trying to judge you. What I'm telling you is coming, it's coming out of love for you because I only want to see the best for you,
yeah,
like I know you want to see for me. So,
right.
if the situation were reversed, I would take it that way.
Yeah, well, you and I have had some very, very frank conversations over the years with each other. I mean, there's been
Right.
times where you've given me advice, I've given you advice. Sometimes you check me, sometimes I check you. And I will say, and I'm sure I probably in echoing what your parents would say, I would say from what I know of them, is that you have been a very powerful and a pillar like example of going through your ordeal, you know. And I would say you and my friend Doug, both of you have been so strong, always supported me. You weren't able to come to my graduation, but you were like a big support of me
Right.
when I was going through my trials and tribulations, going through medical school and then coming back down to Houston. That's when we kind of really, invigorated our relationship. But the point I'm getting to is that the two of you have supported me unconditionally over the years. It wasn't like when you were going through your situation, you were like, okay, well, I can't support you right now because I got my own thing. No, you all, even through your tough times, always supported me. And I pray that this it's been the same, vice versa. I believe it is.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's that brotherhood again. The reality is I tell people that, if we're talking about me and you, our initial attraction to each other wasn't about anything trivial. Like you didn't have a car, I didn't have a car. So it wasn't that we wanted each other because I could get a ride with old boy. Neither one of us came from no big money or nothing like that. We just kind of had this kind of similar way of looking at things. We kind of started doing things, found out we had similar backgrounds, and then it kind of just flourished from there. And over the
I,
years, that true brotherhood is what has carried us through everything that we've gone through. You know, my divorce, all of the challenges that I've been through, you were
yeah,
right there, and that's the beautiful thing about this whole story is your strength to get through it,
yeah,
but also to me, the most powerful thing that I get out of your story and Doug's story is that you all have been a gift to me. And I know it's a gift from God. It's not a frivolous thing. I don't just blow our friendship off as just some, lackluster thing. It has been some true, like, pillars in my life that you all have been right there to help support me and lift me. And everything wasn't necessarily going perfect in your life during those times as well.
oh, absolutely. It's that's part of how God works. He placed us in each other's lives for those reasons, to be supportive of each other, to be there for each other, to have each other's back, knowing what we were going to be going through. He already knew. Um, Now I have to admit to you, man, when we first got to Prairie View, like I mentioned before, you could not notice you. You were the most vocal and active member by far of anybody. And I think I was more on the laid back, quiet.
Yeah.
And but what I did admire about you was your confidence, your level of confidence, because I had the same level. And I don't know if you remember this, but I was sitting outside the dorm one day, and this prior to us, developing that personal relationship. And like you always did, you came down, and I was sitting out there, and you was prancing back and forth in front of me, saying your same. I'm the Peter Graham, and I'm the Shiznick. And I was starting to get irritated. I said, man, if you don't stop prancing in front of me, saying that, I'm gonna kick you in your, you know what's. That's like not telling you not to do something is like telling you to do it. So you did it again, and sure enough, I kicked you, and the rest is history. We've been like this ever since. That
Yeah,
mutual respect and admiration. So yeah, there's nothing like a brotherhood like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and I feel like I have my own little personal fraternity. I have several brothers from Calcutta, and they've all been there for me throughout the years. And we've been there for each other through ups and
yeah,
downs. So,
for
yeah.
sure. So Catherine Muhammad has I think, man, it's a profound question right here. So I'm gonna put it all on you, bro. Do you think someone's purpose can change because of things that happened in someone's life? Yeah, I agree, Robin. That is a wonderful question. Put you on the spot, my brother.
Do I think that someone's purpose
Do you
can?
think someone's purpose can change because of things that happen in someone's life?
Uh, no. You're God created you. He created all of us, and we all have the same purpose. He wants us to love and serve Him and serve each other. So the events that happen in our lives are not manifested. Uh, why? Well, they don't change. They don't alter uh, because of different events in our lives. All those events, or whatever the case may be, occur to serve one purpose. We all, if that makes sense.
I think I understand where you're coming from. The bigger purpose for our lives is to serve, but I
Yeah,
would say
and life
from a
is
more
going to be.
specific, right, but more from a more specific perspective, I would say yes. But I don't think it necessarily changes the purpose. I think it may change the focus of the purpose, or it may change the intensity of purpose. For instance, some people that I have experienced over my life of practicing medicine, the personality didn't necessarily change because they went to another country and went to war. But when they came back, their desire to make their purpose and the effect of their purpose on other people increased because of the things that they saw that made them appreciate life more. I know that personally, I think my purpose of wanting to serve in the field of medicine has been my purpose since a little boy. And so when I hear other people talk about not knowing their purpose or trying to find their purpose, I don't know what that's like.
Mhm.
Praise to the God we serve. But my purpose in practicing what it is that I believe I'm on this planet to do changed when this book came into my life, right? Because what I was taught in medical school, what I was taught in residency program had me very confident. But this took the ability to really help people to another level. And so I think my purpose was more focused. My purpose was more, I would say I had more of a fervent aspect to my purpose because now I could really see, okay, I see that the only person that could do this in my life was God. The only person that could put me on this track is God. And when I found those things out, I felt like my energy for my purpose went up and the focus of my purpose was more in tune. And so that's how I would answer your question, sister. And
Well, let me follow up on that. I agree with you. I think hear me out. I think what I'm saying is just the saying what you're saying in a different way. I don't think your purpose changed because let's just give it the example of you. I think God created you, and your purpose was to help people, medically speaking.
mhm,
Now, the events that happened in your life didn't change your purpose. All they did was change how you approached your purpose. So I think that's the events in our lives. Our purpose does not change, but the events in our lives can change how we go about accomplishing that purpose.
mhm,
In your case, you started out with the traditional medicine. I mean, your purpose is to help people medically.
yes.
The events in your life, you start caused you to adjust how you accomplish that purpose. So So I still say no. Your purpose remains the same, but
Yeah.
but the events in your life can alter how you end up accomplishing that purpose.
I think we're saying the same thing. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last question for the night, man, because we're about to get up out of here. What would be your advice to a young high school student, a college student, or just a young person in general who gets behind the wheel after drinking on a regular basis and has that mentality that, ain't nothing going to happen to me? What would be your advice if you got a chance to sit in front of that person face to face?
My advice to them would be, although you're young brother or young sister, you really need to get out of yourself and think about those who love you. You obviously you don't want anything bad to happen to yourself, but think about that all actions have consequences. And we're fortunate enough in this day and age that those individuals have so many other options like Uber and Lyft. So you don't have to, we didn't have those options back in the day. You don't have to do that. But just know that whatever you do is going to have consequences. Always try to keep the bigger picture in mind. And the last thing you want to do, I know anybody, is to hurt those who love you. So not only will they have your actions have consequences for you, but they also have consequences for those who love you. So just try and keep that in mind. And if you do that, I think you'll make the right choices.
Yeah, good response, man. The one thing that I try to do when I talk to young people is to never sound preachy. You know what I mean? Because I remember a lot of my house friends
you have
or
to be
older
on that level.
guys. Yeah, they start doing that preaching and what you shouldn't do and yada yada yada. And we would walk out the damn house and do exactly what they told us not to do because it was already on our mind. You know what I mean? And so I try to come at people in that same way. I have two friends that are living through the consequences of drinking and driving.
Mm-hmm.
You were behind the wheel. My other friend was the passenger. You know what I mean? And, but I never try to talk to people from a perspective of trying to preach at them because I did it.
Right.
And that's one of the things about my friendship with you and Doug that is so profound for me is that I thank God every day because of the two of you and the many of times that I know I've been behind a wheel and have been drunk. There have been many times that I've been behind the wheel and wound up at my destination and don't know how I got there.
Right.
Have no clue. Wake up or come to like a conscious reality after I arrive at my dorm or arrive at my home or arrive at whoever's house I was going to and have no recollection of how or anything that happened in between when I got in that car and when I got to my destination. I'm so thankful that something like what happened to you and what happened to Doug hasn't happened to me.
Right.
I pray that it never does. I don't drink anymore, but circumstances can happen in anybody's life. But that's one thing that I have is the gratitude that I wasn't, or circumstances didn't happen where I had that same type of reality. And that's another conversation that you and I have had over the years where I say that, and I don't shy away from saying that to my friend. And from a mental health perspective, I never did. And I never have shied away from asking him about his drinking and that night and the things that have happened since then that are related to drinking. Because again, this is mental health January and February, right, brothers and sisters? And the most important thing about all of us, and as we read this book, is to find our own skills and to grow in our own ability to produce that psychological factor, improve that psychological factor in ourselves in order to be able to deal with everyday life challenges, whether they be grand or whether they just be average everyday things. Growing into a better ability to handle things mentally is very important in the Black, brown, and indigenous community because of the racism, slavery, oppression that has put us in a position to not have that type of stance, to not have that type of mentality. And it's important. And so I'm thankful, bro, that you came on tonight. I'm thankful for everybody that came on and listened and was interacting because your story is amazing, bro. Your story has been something that has definitely given me energy over the years, because there are some times when things get tough, right? And I'll say, well, hell, if Rod's still going strong, who the hell am I to start whining and crying when I have all of my faculties, when I have both of my arms. I don't have to put an arm in my pocket. You know what I mean? Same thing with my friend Doug. I'm not paralyzed from the neck down in the bed. So why am I whining? Why am I crying? What, you know? And so there's a balance to that, because we do have to have some time to ourselves. We do have we should all take the opportunity to be weak sometimes, and it'd be okay. Take a day off, chill. Like she says in this book, take a day off, call it a black day. That's probably not what you're going to tell your job. You might call it a sick day, but you know what it's for, right? If you need to sit at home and just relax, if you need a day at the spa, a day at the park, or a day to do whatever to get yourself back to a mental place where you can handle everyday life, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with us having some vulnerability when it comes to our ability to maintain a mental strength every day.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of a true friendship and brotherhood or sisterhood, whatever the case may be. When we can inspire each other, I love it when my brothers inspire me, and you've been an inspiration in my life, as I'm sure you already know. Uh, I follow you, I support you.
That's right.
I believe in what you're doing. I believe in your purpose, and so whatever I can do to help and support that, I'm willing to do. And I've told some of my other brothers the same thing. Uh, we are in this together, believe it or not. Some people don't get that, but it's true. And going back to your question in regards to the advice I would give young people, to follow up with what you said, yes, anybody, whether it's a young person or an older person, you have to meet them where they're at. And that's what I try to do. So, yeah, the last thing I want to do is sound preachy or like I'm passing judgment on them. So I try to get down to their level, and I also relate it to me. I'm like, I'm not telling you what I heard, bro. I'm telling you what I know, because I was there. I've been through all that, been there, done that. And I'm coming at you out of love, because I do not want to see you have to deal with some of the things that I've had to deal with. I mean, why? If you can avoid it, by all means. And if I can help you avoid it, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing what God put me here to do.
Yeah.
I'm doing what God put me in your life to do. So
powerful, point. And I would lastly say to anybody that's listening that is drinking or uses alcohol as one of your ways to cope, it's always an evaluation. You know what I mean? Why do you drink? What does it give you? What does it relieve? Is it a conscious thing? Is it a subconscious thing? And so there are always questions that we can ask ourselves to evaluate it. Like I started in the book, The Unapologetic Guide, we have to evaluate the things that we do and try to come to a conclusion on why we do them. And if it makes sense, good. If it doesn't make sense, then we have to start trying to work on that from a self-improvement perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Robin Muhammad says, absolutely amazing. Robin Muhammad, how do we get the book? If you're talking about The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, I think Rita Walker has a website. So if you look up the book and her name, her site will come up and you get it from her. And I think she's on like Amazon and other places as well.
Okay. Let me follow up with something on that. In regards to the book club, viewers, Keely's website, we're working on a page on his website where you can go to that page and get all the information on what has been read, what's currently being read, where they are in the current book that's being read, and what's coming up. So look for that coming up soon.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that shout out. And if everybody will go to the website and also on my The Ultimate Wellness Group on Facebook and probably on my Instagram as well, I'll be doing another post on what we're going to start reading on March 1st. So we'll be starting Dr. Wesley Muhammad's book. It's a long title, so I'm not going to say it and mess it up. I'm going to I meant to bring it with me tonight, but I don't remember it right offhand. But the second book of his that we're reading is The Pot Plot. So we're actually reading two of his books. It's going to take us the next 8 months to get through his books. They're that thick. The second one is about that big. Okay. But it's very powerful reading. It's going to, I think, be another aspect of a foundation of information that we need to go forward. I know it's a lot to be on just 2 books for 8 months, but the information that we'll get out of these books, I think, are going to be very powerful to help us be able to sometimes decipher a lot of information that we see in the news and things of that nature. So, again, thank you everybody for coming in. Catherine Muhammad says, "Yes, sir, very amazing and inspiring story. Praise be to Allah." Thank you, family. And Robert Muhammad, very powerful. Thank you. And
Hey,
thank you
Keith,
all again. Yeah.
since we did discuss the topic of our purpose, I want to suggest this book. I know you guys
Purpose driven
are with the
life.
nation. Yeah, it is a great read for helping you understand what your purpose is. And I'm a Christian, so I think he comes from that perspective. I don't think it's too much different from the nation, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, thank you, bro. I appreciate that because that opens up a conversation that needs to be had, and that is that the books that are written by people in the Nation of Islam are not for only members of the Nation of Islam.
Right.
And members of the Nation of Islam do read books from a vast array. We don't just stick to, yeah, there we go. That's a major one, and that's what this show is based on. But I read that book, The Purpose Driven Life. That is a very powerful book. I learned a lot, and it has continued to manifest itself over the years as I've grown as a Muslim. That book, which comes from a Christian perspective, it still helps me grow. So,
Right.
the more we understand about God's word, you never push away God's word, no matter where it comes from, right? The minister teaches us that when wisdom comes, when knowledge comes, you seek knowledge. It doesn't make a difference what they look like, what race, ethnicity, what country, male, female. Knowledge and truth is special, and knowledge and truth should be accepted no matter what vessel. We don't knock knowledge because it comes from a Christian's mouth, and we shouldn't knock knowledge because it comes from a Muslim's mouth.
Right.
We should accept information and be able to use our experiences, our wisdom to decipher when it's good and when it's not. And that's what this show is about. This show is not for Muslims. This show is not about Muslims. Yes, I am a Muslim. There's a Muslim tone to it because that's what I am and that's what I practice. But this show is for people, Black people, brown people, indigenous people, and anybody else that wants to come and get information that can take their health to another level. So again, I think
your slogan is perfect. Yeah, this is a place where you can come and get news you can use. And so you listen. If you're willing to listen and have an open mind, then you just get from it what you can to help you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if we all carried that every day, there would be a lot more unity, especially in our community, right? And that's what we need, and that's what we have to work towards. So thank you, bro. I appreciate you coming and having a wonderful show.
Appreciate you, my brother.
Yes, sir. I pray that everybody that came got some news that you can use, that you have another tool in your toolbox in our ability to deal with life and live life abundantly. And of course, in a world like we live in, it's not easy. It's difficult to have good health. So continue to work on it, continue to read, continue to study, continue to gather information that you can put into yourself and self-improve so that we make our community better. And so until next time, you all have a wonderful rest of your evening and a wonderful rest of your week. Peace.